Hello and welcome to RPG Horror Stories. I'm Firestar and I hope you enjoy your stay. Our first horror story is titled, DM auto-captures and kills my character after spending a wish to resurrect them. Posted by u/Arcanus Ultra. We were playing in an overpowered Pathfinder 1E campaign. I had made it most of the way with a lawful neutral half-blue dragon fighter/cleric, gestalted. The story was that my character was a lawbringer, and he had been sent out to stop a great evil. He ended up dying in a near TPK in the sewers under an enemy base, where only one character, a druid, escaped as a sparrow. My next character was a wizard/monk, specializing in dimensional assault, but his story was that he was the partner of my first character who had been sent out to avenge his fallen comrade. At some point, Wizard gets a wish, so, because it fits the story, I wish to have my original character resurrected. My DM immediately told me that I couldn't bring him back and play as him, which I said was fine. I didn't mind, it just felt good to have him survive and go on other untold adventures. After the session, my DM pulled me aside and said that he's going to run my other character, who is immediately captured and bound. Mind you, it's been weeks since my previous character died. I instantly take issue because 1. Why wasn't I allowed to escape after resurrecting in what should have been a garbage pile or mass grave? And 2, even if I was resurrected and some could see it, I was a very formidable force and could try to brute strength my way out. The DM just brushed me off and dragged my bound character to a room with a demigod, I assume, where I was forced to grab the Fork of the Forgotten One. Since I was lawful, this instantly disintegrated me. That really made me feel down. I had spent a wish on something for pure story and roleplay reasons, to have a character, with access to plenty of divine magic, escape and go on other adventures, not to benefit my current character in any way. To have him then re-killed like that felt awful. Now, I am not a Pathfinder player, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I looked up, the Fork of the Forgotten One is an artifact from a powerful archdevil who controlled an entire layer of hell, who attempted to defy the Prince of Darkness, was overthrown and banished into some cold and remote prison. Now, the importance that this has is that when a non-evil creature touches the Fork of the Forgotten One, they are given a choice. They either can become lawful evil immediately, or die. Those who choose death are instantly slain, unless they have a fortitude of DC 30, and those who choose to become lawful evil change immediately without a saving throw, and are subject to a demand spell which requires that they find this Forgotten One and free him from his icy prison. Thereafter, it's very likely that this archdevil is going to subject whatever poor soul found his artifact, into servitude to go and fight the people who imprisoned him. So good luck having any sort of character agency at that point. That really sucks. Now, our second horror story is titled Dumbass DM Ruined My Character's Backstory, and the campaign. This was posted by u/Blood of the Dragon. So I was playing in my usual D&D group a couple of months ago. Our group's That Guy ended up DMing. We were concerned, but couldn't really complain since our forever DM got burnt out and That Guy already had a campaign in the wings. I rolled up an orc and wanted to play a fighter, and the DM said that orcs are uncivilized, so they can't be fighters. They have to either be druids or barbarians if you want to go that route. This is after he told us that we could create our own homelands and cultures for our characters. I felt that this was very railroady, and it gave me second thoughts about the campaign, but I didn't listen to my gut like I should have. I accepted it and chose to be a barbarian. I then asked if there was anything else about orcs that I needed to know for the campaign, and he said, "Not that I can think of." So, we started playing in this small human/elf town. I met the other party members at the typical tavern, where my presence in the tavern quickly became noticeable and bothersome to the NPCs. A couple of guys approach us and say, "We don't take too kindly to you people around here," as they begin drawing their weapons. And now we're in combat with a bunch of drunks who hate orcs. This would have been interesting if we didn't walk out of the tavern, go down the street to check out the shops, and were greeted with the same level of hostility, all because I was an orc. By the end of the first session, we had left town without a quest and leveled up due to all of the randoms that we had to kill who attacked us. After the session, we all had some good food, but the DM said, "I'm surprised you haven't murdered more people yet, Mr. Orc," as he laughed. The next few sessions took place in the wilderness. We ended up finding out about some secret dungeon in Session 3 and explored it, and by explored it, I mean the DM railroaded us through it because he didn't prepare any rooms that we weren't supposed to explore. We found a rusted magic sword that needed its power restored to reveal a secret to the party, so we left and went to the city. My character wore a hood and kinda kept his head down to avoid any orc haters who might attack us, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. The DM had me roll a stealth check, and to be fair, I did roll a 4, so people could see that I was an orc. Men looked at me with hate and women looked at me with fear, but no one attacked us. Yet. So we ended up going to the city's temple, where 2 Holy Order knights stopped us and said that they wouldn't allow that vile orc into the temple where he could get his hands on the good women of this city. At this point, I start thinking, oh shit, is he going there with this? So I had my character sort of defend himself to make it clear that my character is not like that. I ask what that comment was supposed to mean, and the guards angrily say, "You savages are a threat to all women you encounter. Go on, get! We don't want a bunch of half-orcs running around in 9 months." Now, I stupidly assumed that this was still just in-game prejudice, so I had my character explain himself. I wish you wouldn't make such crass assumptions about my people. I am a family man with a wife, a human wife, and 2 half-orc daughters born from our loving marriage. I would fight to the death to protect the women of this city, so enough with your foolish assumptions. The DM then told me to roll a deception check. I looked at him confused as to why he would have me roll deception. Everything I said was true, and part of my backstory that I had sent to the DM, which, to be clear, he looked at for 2 seconds before saying, "Yeah, I'm not reading all of that." The DM then just kinda laughed and said, "What did you put in your backstory? This isn't Shrek. The big green monster doesn't fall in love with the human." I then ask him how he thinks half-orcs are made, and he just says, "Same way orcs do anything, by force." I then am feeling kinda pissed off, but I'm holding back, so I ask him, "So let me get this straight. I make an orc, specifically ask what I need to know about orcs in your homebrew. You don't say anything, and now you tell me orcs can only reproduce through." The DM then said, "It's not homebrew. This is literally just how orcs are in any edition of D&D. You're lucky I even let you play one. Most of the time they're just monster archetypes." I tell him that orcs haven't just been these one-dimensional and murder monsters for a while now, and even provide sources, and the DM just brushes me off and says, "This is bullshit. All of this late 5e lore added after the company went woke, and I ain't playing woke D&D. I am now getting heated and tell him that this has been lore for a while now, even before the whole 2020 woke D&D discourse, and I explain that it was never canon even before 5e that half-orcs were all products of it was more of an assumption, and that wouldn't make logical sense for all orcs to be like that. My arguments fell on deaf ears because the DM refused to listen, getting mad and just saying, "Look, I'm not trying to argue. I'm the DM here. No human woman is willingly going to fuck an orc. Get over it. You should have thought of that before you played one. If you want, I can have these knights kill you on the spot and you can roll up a new character." But at this point, my desire to play D&D has completely evaporated, so I just say, "Fine, kill him then." Which the DM did, and it was kind of a pause since no one knew what to do from there after the awkward exchange and tension in the air. The DM ended up calling the night and we went home, upon which I informed the DM that I would not be playing in this campaign any longer. About a month later, the campaign sort of fell apart as the DM sucked, clearly, because he had a tendency to railroad players. He was also lazy as hell. But he had some interesting lore bits, so our forever DM decided to retire his character and pick up the campaign and improved it dramatically. The bad DM had also rolled up a new character, but left the campaign shortly after because he felt that forever DM was ruining his lore. He also let it slip that he blamed me for why his campaign ended. A couple of weeks later, I got over my frustrations with the campaign and rejoined as a tiefling cleric. TLDR, that guy becomes the DM and sucks at it. He takes a dump on my backstory multiple sessions after refusing to read it because apparently orcs are all and murder hobos. And personally, yikes. Because once again, this is a fantasy setting, and you can make up whatever you want, but really? And as someone in the comments says, no human woman would willingly fuck an orc? Are you sure? Do you know women at all? Like, have we not thought about monster fuckers? Like, there are plenty of people who would fuck a lot worse than an orc, believe me. We do not even need to get into that. Ugh, either way. How exhausting. Folks, never let your that guy become the DM, because it is just going to be a long, drawn-out series of bad events that makes you wonder why you even started playing D&D to begin with. And the last thing you want is for a fun game to be ruined by some asshole. For our third horror story, we will be continuing along with the theme of orc hating, I guess, because characters and players just don't like orcs. This one is titled Orc Hating Dwarf Kicks My Character Out of the Party After I Reincarnate as a Half-Orc, posted by u/Arcanus Ultra. This was my very first time playing Dungeons & Dragons. I had known about it for a long time, but never found a group that I liked. So I was very excited to play when I finally found a DM who had been DMing for like 30 years and started back in AD&D. We were playing in 3.5, and I went for a human druid. Humans are weak in 3.5, but I wanted to make the character anyway, and called her Cora the Druid. The campaign was returned to the Temple of Elemental Evil. When I started, the dwarf, as he was called because he always played a dwarf, the player himself was short, stocky, muscular, and a little hard-headed. The dwarf was not in my first 2 sessions because he was busy crafting. When I finally did meet him, his first line was something like, "Well, just do as I say and we'll get along." Immediately this rubbed me the wrong way, because he had made himself the de facto party leader and campaign protagonist. In our first dungeon, my character died after getting paralyzed by a grell. The players liked me, and using the money that I had, about 500 gold, plus some donations, paid for a reincarnate. I was apprehensive but excited. I rolled a half-orc. At first I didn't like it, but eventually got over it because I got a bunch of upgrades. Because of the rules of reincarnate, my intelligence and charisma didn't lower, but my strength increased, and I got dark vision. But the dwarf took issue. His character's backstory is that his village was raided by orcs, and he hated orcs and did not want to adventure with me. The DM and I both tried to explain that I wasn't actually an orc, it was just reincarnate, and if I could eventually return to my original form with a wish, then I would. The dwarf did not care. His character's animosity was so great that he would not adventure with me. So much so that he decided he wasn't going to help pay for my reincarnate in the first place. The DM coddled him and allowed him and the party to have their money back, including what they had looted off me, and retconned my reincarnate so it never happened. He let me re-roll, and all the other characters got the money, and I had to make a new character. As this was my first experience, it was a sour note to start on. The dwarf did not change his attitude, and the DM played favorites with him many times, most notably when the party almost experienced a TPK and Muradin saved the dwarf, who was level 4, from dying. The DM got mad at my epic eye roll when this happened. Then, Muradin resurrected the dwarf and dwarf's best friend, who was a chaotic evil rogue, but left everyone else dead. I vowed to never play favorites when I DM'd. After I took over DMing a few years later, it did not take long for the dwarf to quit. He did play again eventually, and actually matured over time, so it is good to see that everyone can learn. Yet, he still always plays a dwarf, and some things never change. So this is quite the sour note to start on. Like, the dwarf hates your character just because of their race. I know we've gone over this already just in our last story, but you can't just say that you decide you want to not spend for the resurrection because you figured out the result isn't something that you like. Apparently you can, if the DM likes you enough and coddles you, but that is... wow. Retconning a decision, it's just falling into meta play at that point and just being a complete asshole, so... honestly, I'm glad that eventually the dwarf did learn, but hopefully you are able to put your foot down and not let anything like this happen in your own games. and I hope that anyone who deals with this sort of thing knows better and that it is not their fault for other people's actions. Some people just need to be the main character and always get their way. And unfortunately, some DMs allow it. This is our 4th horror story, and I want to give a trigger warning for self-termination content. The title of this post is, Player has an absolute hatred for kobolds, and Polymorph screws him over. He takes drastic measures. This was posted by u/amateur_DM752. Now, the cast is as follows. Score, a human paladin. Hershey, another human paladin. Score and Hershey are siblings in and out of game. Kavlashi, a Genasi rogue, me. Oreo, our kobold cleric and our protagonist, and Tavali, our drunken monk variant human, our antagonist. Funnily enough, Oreo and Tavali were good friends at the start, each character vibing and contributing to each other's characters in one way or another. Tavali helped Oreo come out of his shell, and Oreo healed Tavali after his usual bar fight antics. It all started to change after one visit to the Underdark, where a group of Underdark creatures ambushed our group and killed a favorite NPC of ours. Before the session ended, it was also revealed that Oreo was a former member of this Underdark Mafia rogue guild, but left because of internal conflicts. We were stoked, but not Tavali. Next session, the party escaped, and the first thing Tavali does is initiate PvP with Oreo, who we all had to separate him from. His reasoning? Tavali had fallen in love with the NPC that we had, and if Oreo hadn't joined the party, she would have still been alive. After that, Tavali and Tavali's player were very much against any Underdark species, whether they were friendly or not. Goblin Mayor? Punched, spat at. Friendly Kobold Blacksmith? Shop burned down. Goblin Variants? Punted. Even with our complaints and the DM talking to Tavali, he would not stop tormenting any Underdark species, and Oreo got at the worst. It all came to a head when we had to sneak into a bandit camp and Tavali had found a polymorph potion. It was unmarked, untitled, but he thought that he could use it to sneak into the camp. When he drank it, the DM made him roll a d100, and he turned into a kobold. He threw a shit fit. The DM basically told him to stuff it and go through with his plan. Afterwards, he found out that the potion was permanent, with the DM smirking very smugly while watching Tavali's player react to this information. A dick move, we all told the DM, trying to defend Tavali's player with that one sentiment alone. We camped and ended the session for the night. The next session rolls around, the DM looks at Tavali and asks what he does while everyone was sleeping. Warning. He described in immense detail how Tavali all while DM and him are grinning. Small detail, Oreo had lost someone he was close with to this. On the consent sheet, we were a heavy on no self-termination. Oreo had a panic attack. We all walked out, took Oreo to his house, had a few drinks, talked to him, made sure he was okay, and blocked DM and Tavali ever since. They have been blowing up our phones for the past day. And that is the end of that story, and holy shit. They had a consent form and everything, which is a great start and what should be discussed at session zeros before the campaign starts, but even with it discussed and it being known that certain players could not deal with this or did not want to deal with this in a fantasy setting, in a story they should be having fun with, still the other player and the DM went through with it, and the DM and the player were grinning about it. And I think that's the worst part of it all. It's not just the fact that it happened, but the fact that they took it so lightly and probably didn't even care when the player had a panic attack and had to walk out and take care of themselves. It is good that all of the other players had Oreos back, though, because I'm sure that it really helped them through that situation. It's awful they had to go through it to begin with, especially in a game that they probably were enjoying and wanted to have fun with, but I'm glad that the DM and that Tavali are no longer in their lives. That will do it for our second episode of RPG Horror Stories. Thank you all for joining me. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and if you have any stories or any suggestions, please let me know. I hope to see you all again.